I grew up here in Oklahoma, and being Cherokee has always been very important to me. But the Cherokee Nation has such a rich and complex history, I really feel like my journey is just beginning. So to learn more about my Cherokee heritage, I enlisted the help of Cherokee Nation genealogists. For me, this is where it all started, on my great-grandparents' farm. It's where my roots began to grow and where they were planted by my mother and the 2 generations before her. It's the land they were allotted 115 years ago under the Dawes Act, which cleared the way for Oklahoma statehood, and it's still a place we call home. For years, this clock hung on the farmhouse wall. It survived the Trail of Tears and was a constant reminder of the struggle our ancestors endured. Many of our stories have been passed down through the generations, but as I found out, there's a lot more to discover. Genealogists at the Cherokee Heritage Center researched my ancestry, and while both of my great-grandparents were Cherokee, they focused their search on my great-grandmother, Thelma Muskrat Lee, my beloved granny.
My family kept pretty good records, I think.
Right, yeah, they did.
And so what were you able to find?
We were able to locate the family's information here in the Cherokee Nation and then connect them back to information prior to the forced removal.
All right, let's go check it out.
Definitely.
I was blown away by what they found. A well-documented history of my ancestors' lives.
This is Gene Norris, our senior genealogist.
Nice to meet you, Jennifer.
Nice to meet you.
You too, you too.
Yeah, thank you so much for doing this for me.
What they found was much more than just census records. I read an actual transcription of my great-great-grandfather's testimony to the Dawes Commission, where he had to provide evidence he and his children, my granny, were Cherokee. They uncovered telling details about my 5th great-grandfather, Richard Fields, leader of the Texas Cherokees, and his correspondence with the Spanish and Texas governments trying to secure more land.
Fields was a man of considerable intelligence, and although he spoke the English language fluently, he was not able to sign his name.
It's one thing to hear stories about my great-grandparents, but to actually see details of their lives in black and white, I felt a stronger connection to them than ever before. Like these lists of all of the possessions their families were forced to leave behind when they were pushed from their homes in North Carolina and in Tennessee. Horses and corn cribs, peach trees, and of course, their homes.
You mentioned a clock that came over the trail. So some of the things they got to take, they could grab whatever they could. So that was apparently a very important thing to Jackson's wife. They just grabbed stuff, you know, and that's all they could take with them. So they were put in the wagons.
My 4th great-grandfather and full-blood Cherokee, Jacob Muskrat, was just 5 years old when he was driven onto the trail. There are actually records showing which detachment he and his family were part of. The Sudowegee Detachment, which traveled 2,000 miles on the frigid northern route. Sadly, many of their Cherokee neighbors died along the way, but my family survived. I also found out Jacob's father, Jackson Muskrat, had already survived another tragedy. He and 3 other Cherokees were wrongfully accused of killing a white man back in Georgia.
And were imprisoned for 2 weeks in jail and acquitted without a trial. And it was afterwards ascertained that the murder was by a white man citizen. So they were imprisoned in the East wrongly and were looking for compensation for that.
All of this new information was a lot to absorb.
I feel really blessed that we have such incredible records. I mean, granted, the reason that they're keeping the records is pretty sad. But I still, at the same time, feel really blessed to be able to know all of this.
For me, this new information somehow helps to humanize the people I never knew, and I couldn't wait to share it with my family. My mother, Janet, is our family's historian. She spent a lot of time on Monkey Island with my great-grandmother, Thelma, who passed on as many stories and details as she could. Stories about my great-great-aunt Ruth, who was honored by the Smithsonian for her work fighting for the civil rights of all Native Americans.
This is the dress that Ruth wore?
Right, It's a doe-skin dress. She broke ground for a Cherokee woman from Cowskin Prairie. She did a lot.
And stories about Grandfather Muskrat hunting with this bow, also passed down through the generations.
Granny remembers seeing him use it. In fact, she remembers her dad had a little blow dart gun that he used too.
But my mom had never seen these lists detailing the productive farms our ancestors were forced to abandon.
1 meat house, 4 stables.
Oh my goodness.
1 acre horse lot, 2 corn cribs. With everything that they had to leave behind, I just wonder why they decided to bring that clock.
I don't know how it made it here. I don't know. I just know it's the family treasure. It's very important that your girls know all this. It gives you insight into why you are who you are and why you do things and why you think things.
One thing we both wanted to know, what's left of the old homestead where the muskrats first settled in Indian Territory?
Those pine trees tell you for sure that's where it was. Grandfather Muskrat planted them. And there were pine trees up both sides of this old drive. And the house sat right just on the other side of the pine trees.
Where the cows are.
Yeah, you just wish that the land could talk. You wish those trees could talk.
While much of our history is gone, I'm grateful today to know so much about my Cherokee roots and the lives of the people I come from. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to pass our heritage along to my children, who one day will ask, who am I?
If you'd like our genealogist to research your Cherokee ancestry, go to Osio.tv and click on the Links Mentioned tab.